It stayed the same. You mentioned a message in the bottle there. That was a huge hit. Went to number one, the band's first number one here in the UK. First of, I think it was five number one singles here in the UK. Incredible stuff. And the career trajectory from that point on, I think that was 1979. Between then and 1983, the every album got bigger and bigger and sold more and more copies. And then you got labeled as the biggest band in the world at one point, and the Synchronicity album, and 8 times platinum in the US, and the tour as well, playing to 40,000 people a night, 50,000 people a night, 60,000 people a night. I mean, what was that tour like? What was the state of the band at that point? Was there a great deal of pressure with that label of being the biggest band in the world, sort of thing?
Well, by the time of Synchronicity, the vertigo had worn off a little bit. It was no longer so unsettling to be in a different status as a human being than mere mortals.
Mm-hmm.
And I still wake up in the morning, put my trousers on one leg at a time, like everybody else. But you're in this exalted state where people look at you funny. You're not really you, you're an avatar. Okay. There's a little guy in here who still has to take a piss, but the avatar is this larger than life figure who overshadows all of life, and makes people look at you funny. But we were kind of used to it by then. But we also were very frustrated by the artistic logjam. Sting was frustrated that he had to compromise, and Andy and I were frustrated that Sting would not compromise. It was just made it creatively a dead space. I love Sting's material. I still am susceptible. His tune, his melodic sensibility still sent chills up my spine. But I'm not a session guy. I just don't do that. I'm not very good at it. I'm not very good at taking instruction, and it's not why I'm here on the planet. So we all felt the constraints of the golden cage, and we were very happy in a moment of comedy to decide, you know what? Let's get out of here. Let's burn down. And the only way we could get out of here was to burn down, to melt down the golden cage, then kill it dead so that there wouldn't be this constant pressure to come on, boys, get back into it, and to go back into that place, which with the best of intentions drove us all nuts. We ended up screaming at each other when we had so much in common, when we had so much camaraderie, such great love for what we brought into each other's lives. To go back into that environment where we're screaming at each other just made us say, let's melt down the golden cage and be free.
It's quite an unusual
As
thing.
said on his next album, his very next single was, if you love somebody, set them free.
Absolutely, yeah. It's quite an unusual thing for any band or anyone in the musical spotlight or any celebrity to go out on the top, because, as I said, every album you'd released up to that point had got bigger and bigger and bigger, and you went out really on the top, and that is unique in a way, isn't it?
Well, lucky for us. So when we got over ourselves 30 years later and had our fun, I'd had my career as a film composer and opera composer and what have you, and Sting had won 20 more Grammys on his own, and hey, let's give it a try. And since it was pristine, since it was unbesmirched by any known failure or decline, we never saw the other side of the parabola. When we reconvened, the attention was stupendous, and it overwhelmed us. And even though when we went to rehearse the reunion tour, we were at each other's throats right away, and
like the
we'd
good old
never
days.
had to put up with a drummer making all that racket. Are you kidding? I'm trying to sing these songs, and I got World War III over my left shoulder, and I, who had quite become accustomed to being World War III on the drums, because that's why people buy tickets to my shows, as they had been doing for 30 years by that time, to have my bass player come over and tell me anything. Are you kidding? Fuck off, get back on the mic. And so with great love in our hearts, we were at each other's throats once more. But however, when we got in front of the audiences, once we made it through the rehearsals, and by the way, at the end of every day's rehearsal, Sting and Andy would get into the wine, I'd get into the tequila, and we'd be laughing and singing and dancing together in each other's arms. Fortunately, we have a very short attention span for anger, and it would only last as long as we were trying to make music together. As soon as we're having a wonderful dinner at Sting's chateau, it was all fine again. But
Okay.
it was really the audience. When we came out on stage in front of 80,000 people a night, that's when we realized that there's a reason why fate threw us three disparate individuals together.
And how do you feel when something like that happens? Because there was decades, wasn't there, between that and the reunion tour from the height of the fame, and you, as you said, you come back and it is huge audiences, and the desire to get tickets, the ticket sales were insane, and the clamor around it all. I mean, how does that make you feel when you realize that despite all that time that's passed, that the music still is overwhelming to the point where people just are desperate to see you?
Emotionally, very powerful. When we would look down into the front rows and we would see those same hot chicks from 30 years ago who are now mothers, who are with their husbands, and they're remembering those days. And they were, if anything, more beautiful than when they were hot babe chicks. You know, somehow the audience grew up, and the memories that they had of those songs made us feel very emotional.
Fantastic. And obviously you've mentioned there that the turmoil within the band at times. I mean, what's it like between yourselves now, the three of you? Are you able to pick up the phone and have a blether, as we'd say in Scotland, or a conversation at times?
Absolutely, absolutely. We send each other dumb memes from the internet, and occasionally there's business to discuss, an album release or re-release or whatever. So yeah, we're in touch. We all understand why we fought, and we don't need to go there. Music has a
Yeah.
different. We are not birds of a feather, even though we shared so much life experience together. Um, Music has a different function in each of our lives. Not just what music to make and how to make it, but why to make it in the first place and what music is for. In fact, I did a documentary for the BBC about what is music, what's it for, evolutionarily speaking. Why do human beings do music and respond to it so profoundly? Why did I make a living putting music to storytelling, and what's it all about? And for each of us, it's a completely different answer. For me, when I play music, when I'm banging stuff, it's a celebration. Let's burn down the building and have a laugh while we're at it. For Stingo, it is a place of refuge, a place of beauty that he can go and harness his feelings and his thoughts into just beautiful lyric poetry and beautiful music. And it's a enchanted garden that he can escape from the hurly-burly world into this beautiful, magical place. And the last thing that will enhance the serenity of this divine atmosphere is me banging shit.